Welcome back to BatFacts, where, for the 25th episode, I'm doing things a little differently. I'm calling this the first volume of Strays, a handful of short stories that are fascinating, but couldn't sustain an entire episode on their own, or fit within a larger topic. And we'll start with Burt John Jervis Jr., better known as TV's Burt Ward, who recently claimed that he was asked by ABC Television, the network behind the 1966 Batman TV show, to take pills to make his bulge less noticeable when in his iconic bare-legged Robin costume. They thought that Robin had a very large bulge for television, Ward told Gossip Column Page 6. The studio allegedly had him see a doctor who prescribed an unnamed medication to, quote, shrink me up. But he stopped taking the pills almost immediately. I took them for 3 days and then I decided that they can probably keep me from having children, Ward, now a father of two, said. I stopped doing that and I just used my cape to cover it. This was, of course, some 20 years before David Bowie's bulge would captivate a generation in Jim Henson's Labyrinth. Ward, the author of the salacious 1995 tell-all book Boy Wonder, My Life in Tights, is of course no stranger to outlandish claims, as the aforementioned autobiography is chock full of tawdry anecdotes and self-aggrandizing tales, so this particular claim must be taken with a bulging grain of salt. Speaking of Robin, in 1991, having only been a featured player on his brother Keenan's sketch comedy show In Living Color, a largely unknown Marlon Wayans was contracted by Tim Burton to appear in his upcoming Batman sequel, Batman Returns, as Robin. It was only a small part, having also been narrowly shaved from the first film, but would set up a larger role in Burton's planned third Batman film, Batman Continues. Despite never shooting a single frame of footage or even a costume test, Marlon was reportedly paid $100,000 and still receives royalty checks from the film to this day.
To this day!
This is as a result of what's called a pay-or-play contract, wherein stars and occasionally directors will get paid their fee up front, regardless of whether the film goes into production or not, as long as any halt in production is no fault of their own. These are the same types of contracts that also netted Tim Burton $20 million and Nicolas Cage $5 million for Superman Lives in the early 90s. I was actually supposed to play Robin in Batman Returns, but there were too many characters, Wayans would tell IO9 in 2009. I was cast, I was paid and everything. I still get residual checks. Tim Burton didn't wind up doing 3, Joel Schumacher did, Wayans explained. They decided they wanted somebody white to play Robin, he would say while recounting the story in 1998. This shift in direction and director is often attributed to McDonald's of all sources, who were so upset with Returns' darker tone and resulting lower box office take that they lobbied for creative input into further installments, ultimately creating a rift with Burton and subsequently Keaton. I think I upset McDonald's. They asked, "What was that black stuff coming out of the penguin's mouth? We can't sell Happy Meals with that," Burton recalled. This is also why the Happy Meal toys from Batman Returns were so notoriously nothing like the style of the film. Speaking of toys, the Marlon Wayans casting also inspired something of an urban legend surrounding this 1992 Robin action figure from Kenner. The figure was from their Batman Returns line, leading some to speculate, based on the long development time of action figures and the figure's unique hairstyle, that the figure was based on how Wayans would have appeared in the film, and was simply recolored later on, although other eagle-eyed viewers say it's based on the way Tim Drake was being drawn at the time by artists like Tom Lyle and Tom Grummett. With the release of Joe Quinones and Sam Hamm's Batman '89 comic in 2021, the creators looked to expand on Burton's abandoned Batman world, using everything from unused scripts to, yes, action figures as a means of inspiration. There's a brilliant dual Easter egg when Marlon Wayans' portrayal of Robin is introduced at the end of the first issue, looking like the Kenner action figure from 1992. The Robin in this series is named Drake Winston, and remains the sole canonical result of the Marlon Wayans casting as Robin. And speaking of casting, with 2021's dual announcement that Jeffrey Wright, the Batman's Commissioner Gordon, was to voice the Dark Knight himself in the HBO Max podcast Batman: The Audio Adventures, and actor Jay Lycurgo being cast as Tim Drake in TV's Titans, after also silently appearing in the trailer for The Batman, it got me thinking, how many of them are there? How many actors have multiple roles through different Batman projects? The answer was more than I thought. Now, there are plenty of actors who have had multiple roles within DC Comics properties. J.K. Simmons, Alan Tudyk, Marina Baccarin, Brandon Routh, Weird Al Yankovic, and Mark Hamill to name but a few examples. Even actors who have voiced Batman himself, like Will Arnett or Dietrich Bader, have gone on to voice other DC characters. The world of voice acting lends itself to highly prolific performers, so actors like Tara Strong, who is perhaps most well known for voicing Harley Quinn, has also played nearly every major female Batman character at one point or another over various animation and game projects. John DiMaggio voiced the Joker in multiple times, as well as selected members of Batman's Rogues Gallery through various animated outings. There's also Rosario Dawson, who played Batgirl in the Lego Batman movie and returns to Gotham as Catwoman in Batman: The Audio Adventures. Though perhaps the most impressive voice acting resume comes from voice acting superstar Troy Baker. At different points in his career through animation and primarily video games, Baker has voiced Batman, Lego Batman, the Joker, Tim Drake, Jason Todd, and Harvey Dent, among others, making him the most prolific Batman voice actor by far. Another lane worth exploring is actors who have returned to the same character throughout many Batman projects. Billy D. Williams famously returned to the role of Harvey Dent that he originated in the Burton films for 2018's Lego Batman movie, where Zoe Kravitz would debut as Catwoman, whom she would go on to play in 2022's The Batman. None other than True Romance's Christian Slater has taken on the role of assassin Deadshot in both TV's Justice League Action, as well as the animated film Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay. And more on Deadshot a little bit later. The aforementioned Burt Ward has made several appearances as Dick Grayson since the 1966 show, including most recently on the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event.
Holy crimson skies of death!
And of course, the quintessential Batman voice, Kevin Conroy has voiced Batman in countless projects.
Joker's opened every cell in Arkham.
Most notably Batman the Animated Series and the Arkham Games trilogy, but recently made his live-action debut as the Kingdom Come-esque Bruce Wayne in the aforementioned Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. But what about actors with multiple roles across Batman projects? Along with the aforementioned Jay Lycurgo and Jeffrey Wright, there's also Adam West, TV's Batman from the 1966 TV show and accompanying film that made an absolutely charming return to Batman in Beware the Grey Ghost, the 18th episode of Batman the Animated Series, voicing the titular Grey Ghost, a childhood hero of Bruce Wayne's. Our final three repeat offenders have each been involved in more than 2 Batman productions. First, renowned actor Roddy McDowall made his Batman debut portraying the villainous Bookworm in 2 episodes of the 1966 TV show. He would later narrate the book-on-tape novelization of Tim Burton's 1989 film, before returning once more to play the Mad Hatter, Jarvis Tetch, in 6 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Paul Rubens, better known the world over as Pee Wee Herman, actually has quite a few Batman roles on his resume. Starting with Oswald Cobblepot's father in Batman Returns, and playing an entirely different version of the character, this time named Elijah Van Dahl in TV's Gotham some 24 years later. In between, he became the de facto voice of Batmite in both Batman Brave and the Bold, for 4 episodes, and in Lego Batman, Batman Beleaguered, as well as voicing the Riddler in several Robot Chicken productions. And finally, the most prolific actor among different Batman projects, has also become so remarkably quickly. Brilliant character actor Dave Dastmalchian made his cinematic debut in The Dark Knight as Thomas Schiff, a paranoid schizophrenic henchman of Heath Ledger's Joker. The actor has gone on to play Dwight Pollard, another disciple of the Joker in the TV show Gotham. He voiced both the creepy Calendar Man and the Penguin in the animated adaptation of The Long Halloween in 2020, and was a standout in James Gunn's 2021 The Suicide Squad, playing the unforgettable Polka Dot Man, a character who began as, you guessed it, a Batman villain. And he was a villain on The Flash.
I'm a superhero!
Damn right! As Lego Batman noted,
I only work in black, and sometimes very, very dark gray.
occasionally light blue or purple, sometimes yellow accents. What about that red Batman you see from time to time? Well, for a long time, Batman in Italy was red. and he hung out with a very Superman-esque hero named Nembo Kid. So who's Nembo Kid? Well, in the early 1950s Italy, still feeling the fallout from the Second World War less than a decade prior, DC's Italian publisher, Mondadori, felt that Superman was a little too close to Übermensch, Hitler's Nietzschean idea of a biologically superior Aryan or Germanic master race. So, in their reprints of Superboy and later Superman in the anthology series Albi del Falco, were renamed Nembo Kid, which roughly translates to Cloud Kid. While his trademark colors remain intact, the S on his chest is painstakingly removed in every panel. Many falsely believe these comics to be knockoffs, and that the change was to avoid copyright infringement. However, Mondadori were officially licensed by DC, though word is that the actual stories within the books differed wildly from their American counterparts. The Nembo Kid comics functioned as sort of a DC best-of book, and would also include a red-suited Batman. The explanation for this has multiple theories, the most prominent being that Mondadori thought that Batman's gray bodysuit was too scary for children, so they changed it to bright red. Others claim it had something to do with how the comics were printed. This even extended, perhaps most famously, to the Italian version of the 1966 film poster, where, in several iterations, Batman is shown in a red costume despite remaining with the original coloring in the film. This is of course oddly similar to Bob Kane's original drawing of Batman before Bill Finger's contributions, but more on that in a future episode of BatFacts. So next time you see a red Batman and think, look at that bootleg, they couldn't even get the color right, you're probably right. But remember, he might just be Italian. And finally, Deadshot. Floyd Lawton. Possessing the power of perfect aim along with the technology and general disposition to be a formidable foe to the Dark Knight over the years, through comics, games, animation, 2 television shows, and eventually portrayed by one of this generation's most beloved figures in 2017. A member of several supervillain teams such as Secret Six and Suicide Squad, and, along with Deathstroke, one of the most lethal and badass assassins in the DC universe. Well, when he was first introduced in 1950, he looked like this. Yeah. Like a magician or a peanut mascot. Not very badass at all. Is this what passed for badass in the 50s? Well, this was 3 years before Brando in The Wild Ones, and 5 years before James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, so maybe? Had badasses been invented yet? You have to remember that even some 15 years later, this is what was considered edgy and subversive. So I guess the world wasn't quite ready for the badass assassin like Deadshot that we know today.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But you kids are gonna love it.
And that's it for Strays. What did you think? A bit scatterbrained, but we had fun. Sound off in the comments below. If you've come this far, why not give the video a like? And of course subscribe if you want to see more. I'm on Instagram as BatFacts Videos, where you can follow along for Batman news, collection pics, and the occasional video update. And stay tuned for the next episode, where I'll be finishing up the Robins, this time featuring everyone's favorite bastard, Damian Wayne. Some Bat time, same Bat channel. Thanks for watching.